So welcome to the draft Planning Obligations SPD webinar. Apologies for the delay in the recording of this. We had technical difficulties yesterday, so we're doing a webinar today to replace that, and then we'll arrange later Q&A sessions. So just as an overview, we're going to do a presentation on why we've prepared the SPD, what the SPD covers, provide an overview of the comments that have emerged from the previous round of consultation and how we've addressed those comments, and then just provide a little bit of information about the update to the costing study, and then set out the next steps and how we're going to consult and complete that consultation process, and then go into assessing the reps. And then we'll arrange the later question and answer sessions.
Why have we prepared the SPD? So primarily it's to improve the overall planning application process. It's intended to make developers, landowners and other stakeholders aware of what we want by way of planning obligations, but also our procedures for how we will negotiate and secure those planning obligations, the information that needs to be submitted with applications when they come in, and then how we assess those applications and determine the obligations that may fall due. The SPD is to set out and clarify the typical types of planning obligations that we would expect to come forward from development of the nature and scale proposed through the local planning policies, but having regard also to consideration of site circumstances. It does hopefully enables applicants in particular when they're developing their development proposals to consider the planning obligations that may be necessary at the earliest stages of doing their detailed design on their proposals, and allowing for those planning obligations to be considered as part of the overall design concept. From the council's side, and hopefully from the applicant's side, it allows for more timely and cost-effective decisions on planning applications. Once you've got the grant of planning permission, we hope it's a very short window of time before we can finalise the Section 106 agreement and issue a decision. And overall, it's to ensure that across Greater Cambridge, new development, where it occurs, the impacts of the development are appropriately mitigated, and we get good quality, sustainable growth. Next slide. So just a very brief overview of the structure of the SPD. The introductory text is all about the use of Section 106 and its purposes. It has a section on the other types of tools that the council has available to it, including conditions. And obviously the first port of call will be conditions where possible. It provides hopefully very detailed guidance in the second chapter on the process we will follow when we're considering a planning application when that comes in, as to how we will work with applicants around being clear about the nature of the Section 106's obligations due, how we will negotiate those, and how we expect to prepare and complete the Section 106 agreement itself. And then it has various chapters throughout dealing with the specific types of infrastructure that obligations may need to be secured, and applying the local planning policies as they currently are. And each of those chapters sets out the policy context, so links back to the local plan policies themselves, and then deals obviously with the nature and scale and type of development to which obligations may be sought from. And then there's further sections that deal with the form of those obligations. So those forms of obligations may be in terms of non-financial obligations, delivery of in-kind on site, as well as payments in lieu. And it deals with any exemptions to that as well. And we've also hopefully provided some sources where you can go and get further information should you wish to. Next slide. And so this is the list of obligations that are covered by the SPD. I won't run through them all, but essentially it's the typical obligations that would arise as a result of new development across Greater Cambridge. We would expect the vast majority of these to be met through the detailed consideration of a development proposal, with the vast majority being designed in and therefore not triggering a requirement for any obligation. But obviously where the obligation can't be met in full on site, we would look to negotiate provision to ensure any impacts are appropriately mitigated and to bring the development into acceptable planning terms. Next slide. James, I think this is over to you. Or Alfie.
Yeah, so the SPD was previously out for consultation between November 2024 and January 2025. So in total, we received 198 representations from a total of 37 separate individuals and organisations, all of which were of different level of detail, and all representations can be found in the statement of consultation or available to view on our consultation platform. Next slide. And this just provides you with a breakdown of the representations we've received. And as you can see, there's some areas with the longer green bars, obviously with healthcare and more generally emergency services and transport and highways, where these are the sort of key sections that we received the most comments on. And we can provide you with a bit more detail of how we responded to these representations in the next slide. So I'll pass you over to James.
Thank you, Alfie. We were pleased that there was general support for the SPD. Stakeholders appreciated the clarity that's being provided, including when and how planning obligations are intended being used. A neighbouring council felt that the SPD needed to acknowledge that some developments should fund infrastructure outside of Greater Cambridge, and this is obvious in terms of surgeries and secondary schools and transport infrastructure. There were technical and legal comments regarding the process of how a Section 106 is completed. Some representations felt that the SPD introduced new policy requirements which were not contained in the adopted development plans. Some representations felt that the SPD took the form of a standard charge, whereas others felt that the SPD could have been more prescriptive and even more standardised. Some representations said that it wasn't always clear how all of the contributions had been calculated, whereas others called for the removal of policies requiring employment skills plans and affordable employment space. Next slide, please. So, as Alfie said a short time ago, we've published a statement of consultation. What this does is it summarises the representations and then explains how we've incorporated these into the revised SPD, or explain why we haven't, where we haven't. We've published a track change version of the SPD, which clearly shows the amendments that we've made since the previous version was consulted upon. We've published a clean version of the SPD showing the document we're proposing adopting. And finally, we've published a costing update paper. Next slide, please. I'm going to just take you through and highlight some of the specific changes that we've made, many of which were in direct response to representations we received. In terms of the first chapter, we've added text acknowledging that there are some circumstances where development in one local planning authority area should be required to contribute towards infrastructure in another. In terms of Chapter 2, the approach to planning obligations. Previously, we had specified a requirement for a planning obligation to be completed ahead of the item going to planning committee, and we've changed that such that only a detailed heads of terms needs to be agreed. We've amended Section 106 monitoring contributions to ensure that they remain proportionate to the resource and time required to monitor the obligations. And we've changed some of the text regarding development viability, bringing the policy in line with national planning policy guidance. Next slide, please. In terms of Chapter 4, we've removed a lot of text which was duplicated from the Greater Cambridge Housing Strategy, and we've deleted duplicate text found earlier in the SPD relating to viability assessments. In terms of Chapter 6 with biodiversity, we've created a greater distinction between the level of biodiversity net gain that's a policy requirement and the level that was actually actively encouraged in Greater Cambridge. In terms of Chapter 7, community facilities, we've highlighted that South Cambridgeshire District Council has, between the previous consultation and this time, published a community facility study. And we've clarified that the level of contribution that the councils would look to agree as a small grant scheme from major new development. In terms of Chapter 13 burial space, we identified an anomaly that was in the calculations, having undertaken the first consultation, so we've addressed this in republishing figures. Next slide, please. In terms of Chapter 14, public open space, we've updated contribution tables. This is in line with the new document that's subject to consultation and is now available. In terms of Chapter 18, emergency services, we've provided additional information from the blue light services, including the obligations that may be sought in different forms in the scale of development. And finally, in terms of Chapter 19, we have added greater emphasis to the policy, highlighting that these policies are to encourage rather to require employment and skills plans and affordable workspace. And we've added some additional guidance on the scale of development where such policies are likely to be encouraged. And next slide, please. So in terms of the costings update paper I referred to earlier, Atkins Realis were commissioned to advise on infrastructure costs to ensure that the contributions proposed in the SPD would be adequate to mitigate the harm of development. Unfortunately, the report had not been signed off in time to be published alongside the previous consultation, but is now available. So the format of the report takes the councils in turn. This is because the policy requirements and approaches under the respective local plans is different. And then for each council, it goes through the relevant infrastructure types you can see on the screen, setting out the capital and revenue costs associated with each. In making these changes and publishing the costings document, we hope that many of the concerns raised previously have now been addressed, but we still want to hear your views. Next slide, please.
Yep, so over to the AI tool. So as part of this consultation, you'll be able to generate AI summaries of your comments. This is an optional part of when you submit your comments, but it's a part of the testing ahead of the us using this potentially for the draft local plan consultation, which will take place later this year. Further information on using the AI tool is on our website, and we urge you to sort of go to the privacy statement where there's more information on using this tool. Next slide, please. So just more generally, for this consultation, so you now have until 5 p.m. on Friday the 17th of October to provide your comments. The QR code on screen, if you scan this using your mobile phone, it will direct you straight to the Greater Cambridgeshire website, where you can then submit your comments or access all of the documents that we've discussed through the presentation. But if the QR code for some reason does not work, then you can visit our website, and it's as shown on the screen, greatercambridgeplanning.org/SPD. Next slide, please.
And process all of the reps using the AI tool, and then we're going to review the comments that were submitted and make necessary revisions to the SPD, and then we'll take this forward through the respective processes for both councils to bring this to adoption, and we're anticipating this will be in winter 25-26. So in terms of questions on the Planning Obligations SPD, apologies for the technical difficulties yesterday. So we've recorded the webinar now, so you have the opportunity to hear from officers on their insights into the development of the SPD, and then we'll provide further sessions on, you'll be able to submit your questions live, be able to answer those. So we'll provide more details on those later. This will be published on our website and your various social media platforms. If you're submitting a representation, this can be done via the consultation platform or via email. If these are the only two ways that we can accept formal representation. So do make sure that you're submitting those by the end of the consultation period, and do let us know if you have any questions through the inbox as well. Thank you very much. That is the end of the webinar, and we will follow up with further information.